group to be completely unconnected. On an average, that group spent only 21 minutes online in 1 week, as opposed to their previous average of 9 hours. The result, higher scores of well-being, regardless of age. Rob Dawson, Fox News.
In baseball, a rookie pitcher threw a no-hitter. Reed Detmer shut down the Tampa Bay Rays in a 12-0 Los Angeles Angels win. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News.
WPTV's First Alert Weather on WSTU is brought to you by Sailfish Roofing, offering excellence, honesty, and integrity in everything they do. Sailfish Roofing, 772-263-ROOF. Community roofing company you can trust. Sailfish Roofing. Now here's WPTV's First Alert meteorologist.
Your WPTV First Alert forecast. This afternoon, another pleasant day, but staying breezy throughout the rest of the afternoon. A small craft advisory and high surf advisory up for our beachgoers and boaters through tomorrow. Afternoon highs in the low 80s and some light showers possible from time to time. Tomorrow and Friday, scattered showers and storms across the area as an area of low pressure moves across the region. Highs in the low to mid-80s. I'm WPTV First Alert meteorologist Katya Hall for WSTU 1450, Martin County's Heritage Station.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jensen Beach, Hope Sound, Martin County's Heritage Station.
It's time now for the Casey Ingram Show on WSTU. The opinions expressed are those of the program host and guest and not necessarily those of WSTU. WSTU does not endorse products that may be mentioned. Any reproduction or retransmission of this broadcast is strictly prohibited without written consent of WSTU. It's time to call in with your questions and comments at 220-9788, 220-WSTU. And now, here's Casey Ingram.
Good morning. Welcome back to another wonderful Wednesday here on the Treasure Coast, and we have another great show on tap. Dr. Millay, the Martin County School District Superintendent of Schools, is back with us today. He's trying to make it a point to come in once a quarter, and we really, really appreciate that, Dr. Millay. I know your schedule is busy, but it's always wonderful to hear from you and all the great things that are happening at the school.
Well, I'm happy to be here, and thanks for this opportunity to talk to the listeners of Martin County.
Absolutely. We had some questions come in ahead of time, so we got a lot of things to cover. Of course, always with the schools, there's always hot topics, especially it seems like this year with all the political issues that are going on along with the schools that have come up, and it seems like it's a national wave of everybody's paying attention a little bit more.
there are a lot, there are a lot of political issues that are going on
in
the region, the state, but that's what our focus is always on. We're always going to comply with the law. We're always going to do our very best to take care of our students. So each day, every day, our staff is focusing on the kids. And we're going to make sure our Board of Education takes mandates and what's legislated very seriously. So we'll make sure we're always complying, but day to day, we are taking care of our kids. And it's an exciting time of the year. It's a busy time, but our staff is very focused on finishing the year strong. We're finishing up state testing. I mean, that's underway right now, hot and heavy. And then we have construction going on. We have end-of-the-year activities going on, graduations coming up, summer school plans. So our focus is always on our kids, regardless of the noise that could be out there at times, or just some of the necessary things that's going on.
That's right. You got to roll with the punches, as they say.
Absolutely.
So no matter what comes along, and I'm anxious to talk about all these things because it is the end of the year and so much is coming up. But first, I want to thank my sponsors. COVID, unexpected expenses, illnesses. There are many issues that can cause your successful business to slump deep into the red. We are here to help, and we only get paid if we provide you a workout. Debt restructuring is complicated. We are the negotiator between you and your creditors. Commercial Mortgage has been in the industry of small balance corporate finance since 2003. Our focus is on challenging corporate foreclosures, debt restructures, equity, and new debt solutions. These issues are often not easy to see or understand when you run a business and are faced with multifaceted debt challenges that include legal actions on various fronts. This is where we come in. We never charge a front fee or deposit. We are only paid if we successfully provide you a debt workout. Areas of expertise include hotels, marinas, office buildings, restaurants, apartments, multifamily, condos, golf courses, home builders, land development, including new and repurposed developments. Call Commercial Mortgage LLC at 772 872-6099, or visit us online at commercialmortgagellc.com. That's commercialmortgagellc.com. And also, the best kept secret in Martin County is located right down in the pocket in Port Salerno. It's the Fish House Art Center, and there's just so much that happens down there. It's a really fun area to go visit. If you've had some folks in from out of town, I hope you had a chance to take them down there. And if not, go visit yourself this weekend. It's a ton of fun. You can come by boat, by car, stroll the boardwalk, explore what the best kept secret has to offer. They feature local artists, an Airbnb, art gallery, boat charters, a marina, a craft and creamery, craft beers, wine, 24 flavors of ice cream, so something for the entire family. You can rent some bicycles, paddle boards. There's really something for everybody at the Fish House Art Center. Check them out online, fishhouseartcenter.com, before you head out, and you can see the various fun things that are there to do. You can give them a call at 221-5482. And finally, folks, June 1st is right around the corner, and that means it is the start of hurricane season. I can't stress enough that Indiantown Marina is one of South Florida's best boat storage facilities, and they are probably the most well-protected hurricane hole you will find in the area. And right now it's important to reach out, and I can't urge you enough to reach out, reserve your place ahead of these hurricanes, because once they're named, I can pretty much guarantee you're going to have an almost impossible time to find a place in the city to keep your boat. So Indiantown Marina, super safe. Have peace of mind that you will have a place to keep your boat if there is a hurricane that comes. You can give them a call at 772-631-3272. And also, it's a do-it-yourself or full-service boat yard. So any kind of work you need done on your boat, bottom painting, electrical, mechanical, it all can be done there, whether it's through yourself or if you hire a professional. So Indiantown Marina, thank you so much. Dr. Millay, this is really an exciting time of year. Here we are into May, and I think there's so much going on. There's proms and graduation are two of the things I think are probably one of the most fun events that everybody looks forward to. So we've already had prom, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
How did that go?
Things have been going great. It's just been nice for our families and our students and the schools to get back to normal.
Yes.
And so those old traditional type activities, it's just nice that we're doing that again. It brings good routines, bring order.
Right.
And we
right.
we needed some of those routines back. And graduation's coming upon us. That's an exciting time. It's not just the event, it's the culmination of 13 years
right.
of schooling from kindergarten on. So a shout out to all the parents and grandparents and families that have had helped students walk the path. It takes the village, and many of our families look different nowadays, and students have different support systems of people that are helping them along the way.
Truly.
So I'm always glad there's people that step up. And speaking of the graduation, our first one is going to be Friday, May 20th at Southwark High School at 7 p.m. Then the next one will be Clark Advanced Learning Center. That's Saturday, May 21st at 10 a.m. That's at the gymnasium at Jensen Beach High School. Jensen Beach High School is Monday, May 23rd at 7 p.m. And Martin County High School will have our final graduation May 24th, 7 p.m. And all of those are inside, so we're going to not have the variability of the weather. We'll
Wonderful.
have the air conditioning up very cool or down cool.
Right.
So
you never know what it's going to be. So
you never know.
We could have a
We
rainstorm.
love to have them. It's nice when you could do an outside event
Yes.
and have people, but it's it's hot here in Florida.
It is.
And,
it is.
We want to make sure people are dry and enjoying the evening.
Absolutely. That's going to be so much fun. Now, is there a limit on the number of guests per student?
Some of that depends on, the size of the gyms, the parking, but all the information has been communicated out to all the different parents. So students, that information has went out. If parents have any confusion, they can contact the school. Information is posted on their sites, but they can contact the school if anybody's having a question. But, yeah, there, of course, has to be a limit.
Perfect. Yeah, of course. We're going to be inside. Now, are there any mask mandates or anything to deal with COVID that we still have to be concerned with?
The only thing we want families and parents to know that if they choose to ever want one or wear one, we're always being safe. So they're welcome to wear one, but there's no requirement. But we continue to offer masks if those that want to wear one. There's cleaning practices that still go on with the antibacterial
right.
hand sanitizers and things. We still maintain those in the school offices and things like that. But families and parents that choose to do that may do so.
Wonderful. I personally, and I know not just personally, but everybody, we are so glad to be able to put COVID and the protocols in the rear view mirror finally.
Right. It's we've learned a lot. At the beginning, we didn't know. We really didn't know. We learned along the way, and We know people felt different ways on different sides of the fence, but we got through it. We all worked together, and
That's
I
right.
think if we ever anticipate something in the future, we now have a little history.
That's right. That's right. And it was just a learning experience for everybody,
Sure.
and the science was trying to catch up. So thank goodness it's behind us. And, congratulations to all the graduates out there. I think that's amazing.
So
Like you
exciting.
said, 13 years, and you're finally there. And I'm glad this year's seniors were able to enjoy a prom, and there was no,
Well, it's so busy, and teachers are busy right now, families are busy, but I always tell the staff, don't lose the joy too.
Right,
It's
right.
busy. Everybody's a little at the end of the rope. They're busy testing, but it's like, don't lose the joy, because it's a great time too.
That's right.
For kids, it's like they
Very
deserve
special.
a good. They deserve to have this celebrated and to end the next week or two
That's
on a high
right.
note.
That's right. It is going
Yeah.
to be the next week or two. It's coming right up. So, speaking of the politics and all that, I know there's a lot of things that have been brought to light, and this is a little bit of old news now. I know you guys handled it all quite well, and that was the gender transition plans that are
Sure.
out there this year. It spoke of a lot, but Governor DeSantis particularly called out the Martin County School District. So can you tell us what was involved, and why did he call out the Martin County School District, and what was the reaction?
Well, just so you know, across the country, there's been a lot of change back and forth on some of these different topics. So what we want to make sure is that the community knows that we comply. That there's a lot of different federal regulation. There's now state changes in regulations that we make sure that we comply. We make sure that any type of support system that we'll have in place for a child, we've made sure our protocols are current, up to date, and we're continuing to look at that. But we want families to know that before there's any type of service or plan developed with any type of child, we'll involve the parent. We do involve the parent, and we're going to make sure we're constantly moving forward, complying. So I think sometimes there's information that gets shared different
Right.
ways, and sometimes it can be misunderstood. But the thing to know is that we want parents involved in their kids' education. We value that. And on some of those, I guess, more technical issues, those real pointed where you're talking about a percent of
Right.
the whole population.
Right.
We have to handle those with care as well. We involve the families. We make sure we're honoring the Family Educational Right to Privacy Act, which is called FERPA.
Okay.
So we do make sure parents are involved and accommodated, that we make sure students get the services they need by law.
Perfect. Again, we're speaking with Dr. Millay. He is the superintendent of Martin County School District, so glad to have him here in the studio. If you have a question for Dr. Millay, 772-220-9788. 220-WSTU. I'm also watching my Facebook Live feed. If you have a question, I can ask him what your concern or question is. I did have some parents reach out to me ahead of the show, so I'm going to go over a few of those questions, Dr. Millay. There's a millage coming up this fall, so let's start out. Can you tell us what the millage is for?
Sure. Well, first, that has to do with, of course, the taxation on the community. We want to say thank you, because this past millage that was passed by the community of Martin County made a dramatic improvement in the lives of our students, the lives of our schools. The schools are the center of a community, and I'm so glad the community of Martin County values education.
Right.
And they take that step. So basically, this past millage paid for several items, the biggest of which was funding for additional recruitment retention funds.
Okay.
And we try to constantly look at how we compare to neighboring districts, and then not just neighboring, because we can't always compete at the exact same level.
Right.
But we try to look at districts like us. Of course, Martin County, it is a higher living cost. In South Florida, when you live down this whole region, it can cost more. So we use the millage helps us. Teachers, there was a gradient level of stipends based on years experience. So if you were fewer years experience, you got a smaller additional stipend. If you were in the middle of your career, you got a little larger, and those with more experience got the largest stipend. So it was to make sure on our salary schedule, in addition to that it kind of varies so we can be competitive with surrounding areas.
Okay.
So that's the biggest piece that took up the largest point. And we have to negotiate some pieces of that with our collective bargaining units that are out there. Other pieces that the millage was used for, it funded some school safety resource officers, an additional one at each of our high schools. And I know all of our families, each one of our schools throughout the entire district has a school resource officer. Our schools are safe, and having that presence, and we work so closely with the local sheriff's department, even the cities, of course, but our contracts are mainly with the sheriff's department,
Okay.
and it's been super safe. So we make sure that mental health counseling, instructional materials such as reading materials, to make sure we have the whole comprehensive sets that we need. So those are just a few of the items, but that's part of the tax rate that's on the property in the district.
Okay.
And the state limits the amount that you can. This tax rate is limited by the state of Florida.
Okay.
The legislature kind of sets that that final rate, and we have to comply.
Okay,
with a
within
great
that
deal of
rate. You mentioned the books, and there's different books that are coming in that it would help cover. That's another issue that we hear of nationally and right here in the state, as a matter of fact, that people are reviewing books, and some of them they feel
Sure.
they're CRT, they need to be removed from the school systems. What's the budget look like? Do you know for the school next year? Are there a lot of textbooks that are going to need to be replaced?
Sure. Well, we want our community to know that sometimes information gets shared in and out of, with whether it's social media. Parents hear something, they thought they saw something, they see something in another state,
Right.
and they say school and they think it's local. We do not have those types of issues. Not to say something out of our understanding or knowledge couldn't pop up, but if we ever have an issue, Casey, we deal with it. And we make sure we know now the laws are changing.
Yes.
So we are reviewing, all types of things like that. We're making sure all our staff get updated training. But that's not been an issue. I mean, very limited type of issue here in Martin County. Our teachers have been super mindful. We listen to our communities. But we are going to, the main part of those core instructional series, like the reading programs, the math programs, we only buy items that are approved by the Florida Department of Education.
Okay.
So the Florida Department of Education puts a list of different vendors. There's a local committee that's made up of school representation, board-appointed members, like they have community members that are on there, a large group of people, and they look at those lists that are approved from the state, all the different items, the textbooks, and then they make a recommendation to the board of members here, and the board ultimately approves that. So they're vetted first by the state of Florida, then they're vetted locally, then our board looks at that, and our staff. So it's a process, but we only buy approved material. So we want people to know, be clear on that now, that we only purchase things that are approved by the Department of Education, which would be the state of Florida.
Okay, and I think that's wonderful that you're bringing in a committee to review these books. And you mentioned the school board. As a matter of fact, folks, there's 3 seats that are going to be up for election. So make sure you pay attention to what's going on in your schools. The school board members they direct the school in a lot of the policy and the guidelines. So it's important who sits in those seats.
Sure, I appreciate we have a caring, supportive board that has always been focused on kids in our district. So I appreciate all the different support, and I want our families to know that there's going to be controversies, whether it's about reading plans or support plans, whatever it would be. That we're all in it together.
Right.
I can tell you, we're all more alike than we are different, and sometimes we don't want people to assume just because they heard something. One, is it real information? Is it misinformation or disinformation? But is it just rumor? But sometimes we're not aware of something that could happen. And when we do find an issue, we correct that. So it could be one isolated thing that occurs. Maybe somebody made a decision they shouldn't have. A staff member or a teacher, something usually it's not out of being trying to buck the system. They may have just made a mistake. That we correct that, though, and we work with them, we retrain. So when they hear of one isolated event in any school district in the state, that's not the norm. It's not the norm. And our staff, our teachers, they're so dedicated. I mean, they're friends. When you're out in the community, our staff our families love our teachers.
Teachers are the backbone of the system.
They are,
not?
and we all have room to improve. I can
That's
improve. We're trying to be excellent as a district, and when we're not, we're trying to improve. So we're in it together.
Well, Dr. Millay, I have to say this. Every time you've been in the studio here and you're here today, you are very open, transparent, and you've always been very encouraging for people to come and speak to you. If there's an issue, let me know about it. You may be right, you may be wrong, but at least you can address it. And that's one thing that I think is so important, and I'm going to give a big shout out to you that you do have an open door.
And they can always call board members. But I want our community to know if they have an issue, they don't have to go straight to a board member. They're welcome to, but we'll solve. I always say, if there's an issue, first talk to your teacher.
That's right.
Then maybe go to the principal. Whether it's something controversial, a textbook or something you heard in classroom, see if it can be resolved, and they can go to me. And then if they feel like it rises to the occasion, they can always, of course, go to the board at any time.
right.
But I just want them to know that they don't have to wait till once a month for that meeting. If they let me know, don't assume that I know.
Right,
Just 'cause
right.
someone said, don't
You
assume
know.
that I know, that our staff knows. We'll work on the problem if we hear about it. So I appreciate that.
Absolutely. There's a saying about assuming, and I can't swear on the air, but you
Yeah.
can figure it out. So, Joe Flanagan, thank you so much for tuning in. I love Dr. Millay and what he is doing for all students in Martin County. His dedication to those students not college bound is admirable. Expanding the CTE programs plus graduation coaches allows us to find so many students who in the past we did not address. Kudos. Let's
Well,
talk about that a little bit. What's he talking about, the CTE
I'll tell you,
programs?
Joe is a great trumpet because he's out, and when I mean that in the best of ways, he's out always trying to promote kids and takes care of kids. He volunteers time, everyone in communities, groups, schools. So, but I'm so glad he brought up the CTE because Martin County has a fantastic reputation of getting kids prepared for the future. We know prepared can be, of course, we want to graduate them, but many will go off to college, but many will go right into the workforce.
Right.
And success has different, can have different indicators. We want to make sure through the career technical education programs that some kids, they're in the skilled trades. We've added like HVAC at South Fork High School and Martin County High School.
Wonderful.
Or welding, we have like 100 students coming to add. We tried some of this trying to make sure we get the instructors, but we've added those programs and additional nursing instructors at the school, so students can learn those skills. They can take like 4 classes to get a credential, and it could be in construction trade. It could be in the aviation pathway that's starting at
marine
Spectrum.
mechanics.
Yeah,
And
there's
that's
all
right, the
multimedia,
aviation.
so they can get something in their back pocket to enter that workforce because we need the skilled trades.
We do.
It takes all. We want to make sure that college isn't the only path. It's important for those parents that want their child going there. Martin County is a great place to
Right.
be. But also, if a parent doesn't have that thought, and all kids are different. I raised 3; they are all totally different.
They are.
We need kids to go into all types of pathways. So, when my air conditioner is broke, or something's not working in one of our schools this morning, we're glad to call that HVAC person, and they get paid well. I mean, some of these skilled trades they go into, and they can make a great living and
They
have
can
a
make a
great
really
life.
good living. That's
And,
right.
I work closely with our chambers. I listen to some of those, business owners
Yes.
and the Treasure Coast Builders Association, and I could start naming. I've worked with some of the marine and auto type venues, and they need more.
There's
They
a
need more.
desperate need, to be honest with you. The country, we went away from the skilled trades and said everybody's got to go to college, and we realized that's wrong. I mean, some of these skilled trades, they make tremendously good livings. And I'll take a welder, for instance. I mean, not only is it a skilled trade, but it's also something that can spill over into art.
Exactly. And, that's part, when I've talked about the welding, it's been hard for us to find the instructor, but like in the auto programs at South Fork and at Martin County High School, there's components. When I've talked to marine and even aviation, kids that are going through that program, I mean, they can learn about painting, they can learn about
Right.
engine repair, all that lends to the marine industry. It can lend to aviation. Of course, so when students start taking those courses at 14, 15 years old, it takes a few years, but they may have kids coming out then that have a certificate.
Right.
They're ready to go. So even if it was the auto path, they're going to learn some welding. They're going to learn repair. They're going to learn how to take care of tools, and maybe, if it's construction, it's blueprint. But
Right.
those different things lend. So our Board of Education, I'll shout out to them because they've helped with some of these federal funds we've gotten recently to start some new programs, and they're
yes.
very interested too. They care, and we're trying to grow the program. So thanks, Joe, and for getting
Yes,
the word out.
I'm glad he brought that up, and very, very important. It's one of those things that just goes to show that the school district is well-rounded. You have some superstar. I've seen them, on the Facebook, the college students, but you also are focusing on the skilled trades because they're superstars
All
in those
students,
areas.
all students, and we have a large percentage of minority population. Half of our population, just over half, is white. About approximately 48% is Hispanic and Black population. So the part with our minority groups is that we have to make sure we have something for every student in our district. We have a diverse population, so we make sure for every child has the option to go to college. We make sure every child has that option to do a skilled trade. So just looking at all the diversity and families that have moved here for the first time, first generation, they want the dream, so we can make it come alive in, in any pathway.
As you're speaking, it reminds me of a statistic, and I don't know it, and I'm not sure if you'll know it off the top of your head. You may. How many different languages are spoken by the students within the district?
Oh, I had that number, but it was, it's like over 40. There's 40 different
It's shockingly
pieces.
loud. Yeah, it's not 3 or 4 different languages.
Oh, no. And that's where when I talk about the diversity, we have to have programs for our diverse population,
right.
because we have students that just may have come this past week
right.
from another country.
Right.
They've moved in, bright-eyed, intelligent.
Right.
They're learning. It'd be like if we went to another country, if you went to China or Germany, and you have to all of a sudden start learning. That's what they're learning. They're learning the English language. So we work with our families, we work with those parents, and we develop a plan. And it takes a little extra time. It takes a little extra time maybe for a child that's come that's non-English speaking.
Right.
One, just to kind of learn what's going on, and then to start learning the language, and then they're going to be assessed. So sometimes the assessments might not accurately, just imagine, if you're only here for a year or 2 years, and then you're going to take a state test, well, that child's probably, not always, but more than often, at any grade level, they're going to show they're behind.
Right.
There's more to that story.
Of course.
There's interventions that are happening, there's prevention things that are happening, but our graduation rate, so if kids, it looks like maybe at 3rd grade, the reading levels or the kids that are on level might be lower, look toward graduation, what happens along the way, knowing that we have a very diverse population that comes into our community, and we meet them where they're at, we give them the services that they need, whether it's books, supplies, extra tutoring, smaller class size, a safe environment.
Right.
And those are things back to the millage. Those types of things support. We want to make sure we can hire as many teachers as we need, competitive wages, have the materials that we need, and run some of the intervention programs and prevention programs to make sure our kids are achieving at the highest level.
Right.
So if you go into our schools, they're all a little bit different. They have different communities, different populations, but they're all focused on kids.
So we've had such an influx of population here to, and people coming from all over the country to Florida. How has the population or the numbers in the school changed? How many students do we have now? I know there used to be just over 18,000.
Yeah, we're right. My last number that I believe I looked at was like 18,500 or 600. It's changing though. In the event, we have different charters, and sometimes students, a parent could choose a charter. Some of our parents have chosen homeschool. They're with the different funding of the state levels. Kids that maybe were never even in our system. There's now that they could receive state funding for their home education type of programs, but it's all districts generally in Florida are growing because people are coming here. And when I share, there's so many different options that families, so we can have families moving in, so our numbers could be staying flat, but actually maybe there's more in different schools and different sectors, whether it's a homeschool or a charter, virtual type programs.
Okay. You never know what it is. And that was actually one of our questions there was, we're accepting new students from out of the county while many are still operating in the portables. So they're wondering how you're accepting other people when they feel that, their students should be in buildings.
Sure. Well, Florida, we have to first start thinking, the questions like Martin County, we have this. I totally understand what their questions are. The state of Florida, though, parents have choices, and that's legislated. That's legislated that if you have different openings, parents can use funding within the district and between districts to have options. So we always want to make sure, and we do make sure, that our students are served first. So sometimes issues get a little blended. Before we can build a school in Martin County or in the state of Florida, you have to make sure that you have the students there. Okay. So often if you'll see portables on a site, that means there's extra capacity needed at that school. But it can be a good thing when we have that extra, because that means once that enrollment gets to a certain size, we can create new space and we can build space. And this is a great school district to want to be part of. So shout out to the staff and shout out to the community for valuing education. The numbers are very small, though. Like when we'll have some coming in, when you look at holistically.
Right.
We may have a couple hundred, and I could be a smidge off on that, but just say we have a couple hundred students overall coming in from different from out of the county. You know, we're 18,600, so
right.
it's a small
percentage that are
and parents
coming in.
do have choice before we open any of those up. We have within district options, so that gets open to Martin County. So say you live down in South Fork, and for whatever reason you want to be up near Jensen Beach, or you're at Jensen Beach and you want to be part of South Fork High School's vet program, or their golf course program, or their construction trade. Parents can self-select, so we let that happen first, and then if we have some additional room, you know, if you have a room in a building that has room for 100 more students and there's openings, why not use that space? It typically costs similar amount to keep it cool, and sometimes
right.
having a few more students in some of our sites might help us add another teacher or other staff that helps the whole population.
Because funding follows the student.
Funding does follow the student. It might vary a bit, but that's not within our rules. That's kind of the legislature set that up that way.
That was just a couple of years ago, too. I want to make that clear. The legislature opened up the county lines, basically,
Correct.
a couple of years ago, where, as I understand it, you better to explain this than I, but, you know, the school board set, this is where our capacity is. We're at 90%. Over that, then you're going to accept students. And I'm just throwing a figure out there. I don't know if it's 90%. But then over that, you'll accept students, and you have to accept legislatively students from other counties that choose to come here. So,
sure. We try to make sure there's some space at all schools. So say we have a school that's pretty tight. Not all of our schools were designated as open enrollment from out.
Right.
They were only designated if there was some space within the school. So we watch that very carefully because we want to make sure we leave some space that if new students move in to that school's attendance area, a new subdivision pops up, we can change to that. So that's important, but it's also important for you. You had a good point. There are things that maybe are legislated over the years that we have to react to, and that's not a good or bad thing. It's just the reality.
Just the way it is.
It's not our decision to make. Those are made at the state level for various reasons that we respect, but we have to abide by that. Just like there's federal laws. Right. Sometimes people say, "Well, I don't like this issue. I don't think in Martin County we should do this." Well, personally, I may not agree either. But it's the law.
Right.
It's either a federal law or it's a state law. And you know what we're always going to do? We're going to follow the law.
That's right.
Because, and I want to put my personal feelings on anything aside, because at the end of the day, I have to follow the policies, you know, the law, federal law, state.
Right.
And we try to make sure our policies are up to date and in sync with that.
Okay.
And we get caught in that sometimes. You know, even board members school leaders, everybody has maybe their opinion, but they all try to be focused on following the law, and sometimes constituents might not understand that.
Right.
That you know, just because you might a personal opinion, you may not like something or even agree. The laws that are there across federal lines, state lines, you know, we have to follow them.
And sometimes you don't realize when laws do change. I mean, this one with the opening up the county lines, that's something that's fairly new. It used to be you went to the school that the district you lived in, and it was even tough to cross district lines. Then it got where you could cross district lines if there's availability, and now all of a sudden county lines are open. So if you're not following what's happening legislatively, it's easy to not understand why all of a sudden there's an influx or
well, if you go around Martin
opening.
County, you know, I came here the last few years, but I'm pretty familiar with the concept. They've done a great job. They have these beautiful neighborhood schools. You know, kids can walk to schools, but then there's also options you can choice if you want a different program or a different. Maybe there's a school that has a little something that you're looking at. You can also take that and transport them. So we have options for parents. And, you know, at the end of the day, that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing. No one's ever stuck or they have to. We have room. We're going to make room. So I think that's part of overall the Martin County Schools just trying to be prudent, and they're trying to make best use if they have some space. We're always trying to build our brand, and we've been faring well in the state, and I'll give that credit to our teachers and support staff that work together to make it a place where people want to come.
So the portables are a stepping stone to getting the population to being able to
they sure are.
Raise the money for a new school.
At any one of our schools, generally, wherever we had portables, once you kind of get enough of the population there, and that's the law in Florida, then you can go on and build that. You can go on and build that
addition or a new school, whatever it needs to be.
Sure.
One of the questions, there was a text that went out from the school that talked about, if the millage, and if you support the millage, if the SRO is going to, would you want that SRO to remain in the school, sheriff resource officer? So the parents said, well, if the millage does not pass, does that mean that SROs will be removed from the school?
Well, first, the millage has made a huge impact. Fact, it's made a huge impact. It's helped us be comparable with our salaries. It has helped add school resource officers, in particular, say it's supplemented at each high school. We would have to look at different decisions. I mean, there's only, if you think of the money that the school board has options to spend as a piece of pie.
Right.
If the pie gets a little smaller,
right.
We typically have the same amount of set services. You have to make decisions then on what the priorities are. This community felt that was a priority in this past. So we've appreciated. I think if you I think Martin County, honestly, is probably the safest school district in Florida. Not to say we couldn't have an issue tomorrow, but what I mean is we've been proactive. We have those school resource officers at each site. We've taken steps at each of our buildings to make sure they can lock down, and we have the safety mechanisms. We have this. I don't have mine on me because I'm here, but every employee in our district has that button on their lanyard that they can press. Every employee, bus driver, assistant, food service, they can press that button if they see something, and our buildings will lock down and authorities are called. So
wonderful.
There's just so many proactive things. It's really helped. The millage has helped Martin County schools. You could just look at the facts of what's occurred, and we're appreciative of that, and it's been well spent.
Wonderful. Okay. Another question was, who reviews the curriculum?
Sure. First, any curriculum, when I kind of go back to the earlier, if it's a textbook, say it's the state has standards in reading and math. Say they call them the best standards. That's the Florida Department with the terminology, but there's standards the state sets in every content area.
Okay.
The state then has a list of different vendors that they vet, and they put on. So each of those content, social studies, science, reading, math, there's a list each year. So every year it's a new adoption year. Once they have that list, then we know what we can select from. We have a local committee, and I believe that committee is about 30 people. It's a pretty diverse community committee of. There's school parent representation, school representation, administrators, board members have appointed reps. So that committee then looks and vets.
Okay.
And teachers have input. There's surveys and things that go out. They have an opportunity input, and then they make the recommendation to the school board. So right now, even on our website, you can look at those materials. Any parent.
Okay. There's
windows where they can go in and look at materials.
Review what their students are looking at.
First at the state, then it's done locally by a committee, then our school board ultimately. And that committee operates on behalf of the school board as far as, anytime you have a committee, the board, they operate under the guidance and
the committee.
Jurisdiction of the school board.
Okay.
They set a committee to look at things. So that's a good thing because you get a little more diversity, but ultimately the school board makes that final decision, but it's vetted at different points. We will not intentionally ever adopt something that we know is going to be controversial. Now, sometimes a lot of these new textbooks, everybody can imagine this, there are textbooks, reading books that parents read on their Kindle. The publishers can kind of update those. There's a lot of electronic stuff. So some of what you see gets updated. It's not like the old days you printed that book and then you wouldn't see a change until it was reprinted in 7 or 10 years. Now sometimes there can be little things that change and you don't quite know. We try to stay on top of it, but what we want our listeners to know, if we found it, we will look at it, we'll investigate it. If it's not appropriate, we'll take action.
That is incredible. That's something I didn't realize, is that you're right, with digital materials nowadays, things can be updated and changed very quickly in the blink of an eye, and if it could slip through.
And I think for our listeners out there, I think our parents and families are very reasonable. No, we're all in this together.
Right.
We take it seriously. Don't assume we know something, but all school districts are kind of in the middle of this right now in the state of Florida and in the country.
Right.
So we'll get through this, and we're going to make the right decisions, and we're going to take care of our kids, and we want safe and only the necessary materials that we need.
Perfect. Another question. With real estate values that are skyrocketing, the millage is a percentage of real estate values. Why is there a need for an additional millage? Won't there be enough money raised just from the additional values in real estate?
Yeah, Florida doesn't. It simply sounds that way, but it doesn't always. Just because property taxes, you can't just equate it quite that easily. Because in Martin County, there's different. And I'm going to try to make it as simple as I can. And what's a complicated issue. Throughout the state of Florida, there are wealthier districts. There are some poorer, more rural school districts, and then there, down around South Florida, you're going to have more wealth, more industry, more jobs.
Right.
The legislature sets the tax. They kind of have an equalization. So in some counties, not all of what is raised here stays here. It goes to the state of Florida, and it kind of gets equalized out. So we're a district, and there's several of them that we help the whole state of Florida. But that's
kind of a donor district, so to speak.
Yeah, that's basically what we are. So money does follow the students, but it's also when you kind of look at all the different expenses that we have under the current staffing, the formula that we get from the state as far as how we fund our schools, that we can hire, and the money we get to run the district. That's a bit predetermined. There's some leeway with the millage to do some additional work. Like, it does help us be competitive, for us to have a lot of districts that offer that, where they have that extra millage, like the teachers.
Because the millage money stays here. That does not go to the state and get reallocated.
And we have a list of everything the millage gets spent on, just like, not to be confused with sales tax, which is dealt with construction. But we monitor that. There's local committees of the board has appointed that has looked at that. They've been very positive about how the money's spent. So there's just variability, but that helps us stay competitive with salaries. It's helped us keep school safety at the forefront at the highest levels. It's helped us provide extra counseling with kids. It's helped us to make sure every kid in Martin County has great resources and adequate resources. It's helped us make sure that we have, computers and things like that. Kind of stay up with the times with what a good, strong public education should be. We compete at the highest levels in the state of Florida, and I put us against any district in the nation.
100%. 100%. We do have a wonderful, dedicated staff here in Martin County with the school district and the teachers. And, if you follow the Martin County School District Facebook page at all, you'll see some of these outstanding stars. I love how you cover some of your students, and there's so many to cover, but it's really, you can get a flavor for the opportunities that are available for these kids that go through the school.
All of our schools look different, and when I say all this about success, a grade, trust me, grades are important as far as the school grades that we get.
100%.
And we want to be at the highest, but there's a little more to the measure of success than just a number of grade. Because, shout out, say, Port Salerno Elementary. They may not show that they've had the highest grade on some of the state, but let me tell you what, there are so many great things going on there. That school has our highest degree, for one example, of Hispanic students. And they are trying to make sure that a lot of those students, maybe they've come in, their first generation, they need a little extra time. We're making sure that we provide the extra support they need, the materials they need, the services they need. So while sometimes that could use some extra time, the grade that they get might not be as indicative when you compare them to a different school.
Right.
But the work is going there, and those families love that school. We have our board is committed to that school among other schools.
Right.
We have several that we're focusing on, that we're trying to improve. So, grades are critical, but there's more to these stories. And if no matter where you live, my kids are grown, but I always say, if they were here little again, I would be happy for them to be in any one of our schools. And some of our schools, the few that may have a little lower grade that we're working on, I would be even more than happy to have them there. I mean, I feel that confident when I'm out seeing the strategies that are going on there. They just have different barriers.
Right.
And our board's committed to making sure interventions are going on, if it's extra staffing that it's happening, and it's just a work in progress. There's never going to be the perfect system that measures it. But I just want to shout out to all those schools that are giving the kids what they need.
Dr. Millay, I have a question for you. I noticed an article this past week. Michigan State University was no longer accepting SAT and ACT scores. They said, we're just going to look at what these kids, the GPA is from their high school. And they had, it was like a 3.9 or maybe a 3.5, 3.9 sounds a little high, GPA. And that's really, to me, that makes sense. It's an accumulative grade over the course of their high school. So it's not down to just one test, which can be very stressful. And that brings me to Florida. There was a point, now are they still doing this, where there's a test at the end of the year that whether or not, no matter what the rest of the year the child learned or what their grades were, they needed to pass that test to move on to the next grade. Is that still in force? Or
well, we do have the FSA. It's changing. You know, the governor's announced the last several months, they're changing the FSA and they're changing the state evaluation system. It's going to be moving toward more of a several points along the year, so maybe 3 points of the year where you're monitored. So it's more of a continuous progress. With some of the different systems, like you mentioned, the colleges, ACT,
right.
SAT, the pendulum kind of changes. It does swing. You know,
right.
we can go about 5 or 10 years ago, it's kind of over this way, and then it goes back
right.
the other way. So what we make sure we're focusing on, John Millay is superintendent, and our board, we're focusing on all kids growing. So even though some of the state evolves and changes, we're going to follow that, and we're going to do well on it.
Okay.
Because we are focused on kids growing, every kid growing throughout the school year. So the how they're changing the end of the year test, we're giving it this year, it's going to change. I mean, there will be an end of the year assessment next year, but it's not going to be just one big test like it is now. It's kind of broken up into 3 different portions, and there's more coming out. So a test maybe when they start the school year to see where they're at, where are they at Christmas, and then where are they at the end of the year, as opposed to just having May assessments.
One test, right.
So I think there's a lot of value that looking at that, because it's a growth model.
Right,
you know.
right. That is a growth model.
We want all
sure.
kids growing. You know, we want all kids on their academic areas. We want, if you have a child, you want to make sure they're, in a couple of months, they read a little bit better.
Right.
They're growing. So I think that'll show.
If there's not improvement, you need to find out why.
Yeah, and that's what we do at each school level with our new reading series. We give tests every, there's a unit test, say, for example, every 3 weeks.
Okay.
We can just look at how students are performing, and, what do we need to do to make sure if that child is behind that we give them the intervention they need.
Right,
It's kind of just progress monitoring. It's making sure we keep up with their progress all throughout the year to make sure every child's moving.
True. I just think about, as you're speaking, how much education has changed just in the last 20, 25 years. We started out with No Child Left Behind, and it's just such an evolving process and a learning experience as well.
This coming year, they're changing where it's all going to be more computer-based, where you're going to take, it won't be the pencil. It's all moving. And with that, sometimes you get real live. When you take an assessment, sometimes you get your feedback right away. It's still to be determined on some of those types of things, but it's come a long way, and we're learning. There'll be issues with the new system.
You talk about going away from pencils. I'm sure some of that had to come from COVID and everything we learned through that experience.
Well, you got to digital environments where you're interacting online and more of the type, and kids just like they do outside of school. They're texting, they're communicating. That's what we're all doing.
Right, and technology changes. I'll share a personal story here real quick, and that was back in junior high. They're like, you got to take typing class. I'm like, no, I'm going to have a secretary. I don't need typing class. We're not going to need to type. Well, this is before cell phones, and now it's like everybody. You can't get away with not typing so much every day. It's like, that was a bad
There is a little tool, though, when we say there's a little tool on our phones and all that I love. The little microphone where you can voice to text. I love it. I just got to make sure I always look. I glance at it. Sometimes I don't look enough at it.
That's right.
And then after I send it, I'm like, I thought I looked at it, but it says, and I have to.
It says something else. I have that issue.
Yeah. So, but the world's changed, and
it has.
Some of the changes are positive, and some we're learning more from. And
we learned from it. We have to roll with it, and we don't know what the future brings.
Right.
So.
But at our schools, we're going to follow. The state has high standards. We're going to follow those standards, and we want Martin County to be the best.
Another question we had is, what is the employee to student ratio?
Well, I think that would depend on what type of groups. For instance, when you think about employees, we have, if you look at our bus drivers, on that, buses, typically have about 60 seats on there. If you look at how we fund, we have staffing formulas on how we make sure we monitor that. So let me back this up. The state of Florida has requirements. So if you're like in primary grades or middle grades or high school, there's a set number of students that you could have in each grade level. So we have our staffing policy that is in compliance with that. based on school size, based on how large the school is, how many students, that dictates how many teachers they'll receive. Based on how large the school is, dictates how many assistant principals they'll have, how many counselors, how many custodians.
Okay.
See what I'm saying
Right.
on that?
Yes, please.
And then like with even like busing, our buses, people may not be aware of it, but like elementary starts first, then we have high school, then middle school, so 7, 8, 9 basically. Each one runs 3 routes.
Okay.
So in some districts throughout the country, maybe they combine all their students and they want run one
route.
longer one. Well, we operate pretty efficiently.
Right.
Because
right.
for the number of students we have, and those buses triple up,
They're running
so
3 routes a
I
day.
guess what's important, it can vary by each school to some degree, just based on the kids that come in and out. But generally speaking, we follow at each of those sites kind of the state standard, and we have our local staffing policy on how we
Okay.
fund those schools.
And you are one of the largest employers in the county, if I recall.
Yes, we are.
The top 3 anyways, if I remember.
We have over 2,500 employees, and when you count our part-times and subs, and we need subs if you want to sub in our district.
That's right.
You contact us. If you have 60 hours or more, we'll get you going for teachers. And, we need bus drivers. We talked about that a minute ago.
Right.
Anybody that'd like to learn, shout out to our bus drivers.
Well, you were here before, and there's always a lot of jobs that are open. Right now, it's really tough to find employees.
All throughout, we had a job fair just a week or so ago. We hired about 60 people.
Wonderful.
From that.
Congratulations.
We had at Martin County High School across the board. A lot turned in, we're following up on. But you don't have to come to a job fair to apply. You can go to our website. You can call the district office if you'd like to join us as a paraprofessional, custodian, again, bus driver, teachers, administrators. We have openings across the board.
More than likely, if they have something to offer, you're able to utilize their
And we're
their
a great
expertise.
employer.
Right.
We offer state retirement benefits, health care, those
lot of-
types of things.
yes, a lot of
And
things
a
that
good
are missing
working
these
environment.
days.
You get to work, most of the work is day shift.
That's
for a
right.
lot. So if,
That's
maybe
right.
they're stay-at-home parents or mom or dad's looking to get back, they can kind of work on same schedule their child does.
And then you don't have to worry about the child care because you're working the same schedule. We are running out of time. We just got about 4 minutes left. One last question I had. Where was the COVID relief funding spent?
Sure. So in a variety of areas. First, we want people to know, imagine when that kind of back up, everybody went home in the whole country and in the United States.
Right. Right.
We had
Crazy.
a lot of one-to-one going on with some, a lot of our, say, high school, middle and high school students, but we made, so first and foremost, we had to go remote, so we bought
Yes.
a lot of computers for
Right.
students. A lot of money went to whether it's tutoring type services. We pay for extra tutoring help with the schools. We bought a lot of personal protective equipment, so all
Okay.
the sanitation, the extra staff we had to use.
Right.
Some of the extra staff we had to bring on, staff that we had to hire to, help close achievement gaps, kids that came back with some deficits. So it's been spent on a variety of areas, all within the limits of, the state gives
COVID.
you, or the federal and the state gave us guidelines to work within. So we've made sure that we follow strict guidelines. And most of the money is given over a period of 2 or 3 years. So, we try to be prudent. We're on a timeline, so we don't try
Right.
to spend it all at once, because it was designed like a big chunk summer school. So
right.
last year we spent a lot of funding for summer school, a larger
Okay.
this year we're doing it again. We have about 12 sites. I could be a
And
little
that's
off,
something-
but I
okay.
don't have it in front of me. We have about 10 or 12 sites, so for our elementary, middle, and high. And we have summer school staff, so kids that are behind, or parents that want them to have that little extra up, they can
Right.
do that.
They can
So-
do that. Well, again, we spent the hour here with Dr. Millay, Superintendent of Martin County School District. We have just about a minute and a half left, and I want to end on a very positive note because there's so many wonderful things that we wanted to cover this hour that have happened in the district, and we didn't get a chance to do that. So tell us, what's going on, new buildings, whatever it is, I'll let you choose.
Well, one, it's a busy time of the year, but it's an exciting time of the year. So have patience with us. In my opinion, all the teachers are working hard. I want to make sure that we're keeping things safe
Yes.
and supervision. So we don't want to take that for granted. We want to finish strong. So at the end of the year, parents, there's a lot going on in buildings. Careful how you enter those parking lots. Careful how you leave.
Right.
follow protocol, and if everybody have a little extra patience with us, we'll appreciate it. We're going to try to do the same.
Right.
So patience is a virtue. Patience, and we focused on good customer service this year. We've been retraining a lot of our administrative staff to do that, because we want that positive part that's out there greeting people. But I'm proud of this morning. I was on the Palm City Elementary site. The roof's going on that second-story structure.
Fabulous.
So 2 new buildings. That one, Jensen Beach Elementary. Just a lot of good energy. We've gotten through this, the most part of all this COVID. So it's nice to be getting on the other side, and looking forward to a good summer. And I just want to, share, if parents need any questions answered, they can always contact the school district office, our website, martinschools.org. Jen DeShazo, our public information officer, will be happy to share information to connect them with any services they need.
Fabulous. We've been here with Dr. Millay. Thank you so much. We'll talk to you again here in a few months, and there'll be all kind of new exciting updates for the new school year. Next week, we're going to have Marilyn Mager in the studio, as well as James Campo. We'll talk to you then, Wednesdays, 10 a.m.
You are listening to WSTU, Stewart, Jupiter, and Indiantown, Martin County's